Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever wondered how a database just knows the difference between a name, a number, or a date? Well, it's not magic. It's all thanks to something called data types. They're kind of like the secret ingredient that makes every database smart, fast, and super efficient. So let's dive in and see how it all works. Think about this for a second. Why does your bank care so much about that 0.25? I mean, it seems like such a tiny detail, right? But that little decimal point is the difference between your balance being perfect and it being wrong. Your bank needs absolute precision, and that simple idea is really the heart of what we're talking about today. So here's the game plan. We're going to start with the basics, what data types even are. Then we'll jump into the big three categories: numbers, text, and time. After that, we'll see why all of this is so important in the real world, and then wrap it all up with a handy little blueprint. So first up, what exactly are we talking about here? The best way to think about a database is like a giant digital closet. And you wouldn't just throw all your clothes, shoes, and everything else into one big pile, would you? Of course not. It would be chaos. Well, a data type is basically a rule for a specific part of that closet. It tells a column, hey, you only get to hold numbers, or this one over here is just for text. It's exactly like having separate drawers for your socks, your shirts, and your pants. It just keeps everything perfectly organized and easy to find when you need it.
So why do we even bother with all this organizing? Well, it all comes down to three huge benefits. First is accuracy. This stops you from accidentally putting a person's name into a column meant for prices. Second, performance. When the database knows it's only looking for a number, it can find what it needs way faster. And third, storage efficiency. This makes sure you're using just the right amount of space for your data, which is a massive deal when you're storing millions or even billions of records.
All right, let's get into our first category. We're going to start with the real workhorses of any database, the numbers. This is for anything and everything you might want to count, calculate, or do math with. Simply put, numeric data types are your go-to for anything involving math. If you want to add up your total sales, figure out an average price, or keep track of how many items you have in stock, you're going to be using these. Now with numbers, there's one really important split you need to understand. Are we dealing with whole things or parts of things? For counting whole items, like say the number of students in a class, 30, you'd use an integer or int. But for things with fractions, like the price of a product, $19.99, you need a decimal type to capture that extra precision. If we look at the most common types, int is our champion for whole numbers. Decimal is absolutely perfect for money because it stores the exact value. And then there's float, which is awesome for scientific stuff. It can handle a huge range of numbers, but it stores an approximation. That makes it a big no-no for anything financial, where every single penny counts. Let's see what this looks like in the real world. This little snippet of code is SQL, which is the language we use to talk to databases. We're creating a blueprint for a products table. We're telling it the product ID and quantity have to be whole numbers, so int, and that the price must be a decimal that can handle dollars and cents precisely. It's clean, it's clear, and it's super efficient. All right, we've got our numbers all sorted out, but what about all the stuff that gives our data meaning? The names, the descriptions, all the words. That's where text data types come into play. Text data types, which you'll often hear called strings, can handle anything from a single letter to an entire novel. Here's a good analogy. Think of the difference between a small business card and a giant scroll. One is short and has a fixed size, while the other can be really long and flexible. Databases have specific tools for each of those situations. So here are the three big ones you'll see all the time. Char is for text that always has the same length, like a two-letter state code. Varchar is for text that varies in length, like someone's name. And text is for all the really long stuff. Think product descriptions, user comments, you name it. And here's another quick blueprint. For a student's table, we'd probably use varchar for the name and email, since we know they'll vary but won't be ridiculously long. But for the address, we might go with text, just to make sure we have plenty of room for those longer street names, all without wasting space. Okay, so we've covered numbers and text, but there's one more piece of this puzzle that's absolutely crucial for almost all data: time. And you better believe databases have special tools just for this. Now here's what's so cool about this. The database doesn't just see May 10th, 2024 as a bunch of letters and numbers. It understands that it's an actual moment in time. And because it gets that, it can do really powerful things, like sorting events chronologically, or calculating exactly how many days are between two different dates. And of course, there's a specific tool for every job. Date is perfect for storing just the date, like for a birthday. Time is great for just the time, maybe for store hours. Date time combines both, which is awesome for scheduling a specific appointment. And timestamp is a favorite for logging. It records the exact moment something happened, like when a user logged into a website.
Our final SQL example here shows a super simple event schedule. We're using varchar for the name of the event, a date column for the day it's on, and a time column for when it all kicks off. It's all perfectly organized, making it a breeze to search and sort.
Okay, we've gone through a lot of the theory. Now, let's bring it home and connect this to the real world, from the kind of small projects you could build this weekend to the massive systems that pretty much run our world. Even if you're just building a simple little app for yourself, getting these right makes a huge difference. If you're building an expense tracker, using Decimal for your spending ensures your budget math is always spot on. Building a task manager? Using DateTime lets you easily sort all your tasks by what's due next. It just works.
And what's really amazing is that these exact same principles are what power the biggest companies on the planet. An e-commerce giant relies on int to track inventory with perfect accuracy. A bank's entire system depends on the precision of decimal for trillions of dollars in transactions. And your social media feed, it's all ordered perfectly thanks to timestamp.
So let's pull everything together into one final blueprint. Think of this as your cheat sheet. We have our three main categories: numeric for all the math, text for all the words, and date/time for all the moments. This right here is your guide to building a solid, well-organized database.
Look, if you take away just one single thing from all this, let it be this. Choosing the right data type isn't just some minor detail you handle at the end. It is the absolute foundation of a good database. It's what makes everything reliable, fast, and efficient.
So the next time you check your bank account, post a comment, or add an event to your calendar, just take a second to think about that invisible structure working behind the scenes. These data types are quietly organizing your entire digital life. The real question is, now that you can see them, where else are you going to spot them? Thanks for watching.